Okay, so an atheist could turn around and say, well, how do you know that the universe hasn't always existed, that it's an eternal universe rather than an eternal God? What could you answer back with to that
Well, that
objection?
is the key premise, isn't it? That's the controversial premise in the argument that the universe began to exist. And in support of this premise, I offer both philosophical arguments and scientific confirmation. Philosophically, I argued that the existence of an actually infinite number of things leads to absurdity and is therefore metaphysically impossible. If that's right, then the number of past events in the history of the universe cannot be actually infinite. It must be finite, and that therefore the series of past events began to exist, which is that the universe began to exist. The second argument would be the impossibility of forming an actually infinite collection of things by adding one member at a time. Even if an actually infinite number of things could exist, you could never form such a collection by successive addition, because it belongs to the very nature of the infinite that it cannot be formed sequentially. It would have to be given all at once. But the series of past events has been formed sequentially, one event occurring on the heels of another. So it would follow that the series of past events cannot be actually infinite, which is to say the universe began to exist. Now, those purely philosophical arguments have received dramatic confirmation scientifically during the 20th century from two lines of evidence which are independent of each other. The first would be the evidence from the expansion of the universe. The evidence indicates that our universe is in a state of cosmic expansion. And if you trace that expansion back in time, you come to an absolute beginning of the universe about 14 billion years ago, before which literally nothing existed. No matter, no energy, no physical space, no physical time. It is the beginning of the universe. The second empirical confirmation comes from the thermodynamic properties of the universe. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that physical processes eventually run down toward a state of equilibrium. So that if the universe has existed for infinite time, the universe should already be in a cold, dark, dilute, and lifeless state. The fact that it is not indicates that at some point in the finite past, the universe came into existence with a certain amount of energy in it, and that energy has been in a state of being used up in accordance with the second law ever since that creation event. So those two lines of scientific evidence give rather dramatic empirical confirmation of the second premise of the philosophical arguments that the universe is not past eternal, but in fact began to exist.